Pre-game, post-game, every game. Presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at Bodog.net. JPat and Wadden here with you, getting you set for the pre-game show here for the Canucks against the Flyers.
Yeah, the early start. I love early starts. Over the course of 82, of course, most games are going to be played at night, but I think it breaks it up a little bit. Now, this is the second game of the season, but was up early, was ready to go. We'll see if the Canucks are ready to go. They don't want to push this very far into the season without getting that first win, because I think it just brings in self-doubt. I think in a market like Vancouver, you're starting to wonder all the expectations on this hockey club, the start they had the other night in Edmonton. And so this feels like a day that the Vancouver Canucks, if they're going to make something out of this road trip, you get back on the beam, you get out of Philadelphia with a victory, you go 1-1 in the first two, and then you see what you can do as you move on to Washington, Columbus, and Minnesota to wrap things up. But the Flyers, they got John Tortorella behind the bench. They're feeling pretty good about themselves. Came up with a good win the other night in their home opener against the New Jersey Devils. So this isn't going to be easy. Tort squeezes the best out of his teams. He may not have the long shelf life, but in the short term, I think John Tortorella can squeeze a fair bit out of his hockey club. And so the Canucks, they're going to have to be ready here this afternoon.
And of course, the Canucks don't see the Flyers very often in the season. 1-1 against them last year. They had that shootout victory early in the season. But as you mentioned, the Flyers coming off a pretty good victory, 5-2 to kick things off against the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, it didn't get off to the start they were looking for. They gave up the first goal of the hockey game, but then they got rolling. And, this is a team that, again, with John Tortorella, he's a bit of an X factor. I think you always have to be ready for this team to come out and get fired up under Torts. And they feed off the win the other night. Travis Konecny had a couple of goals there. He's one of the guys that they're going to be looking at because when you look at this Philadelphia roster, Sean Couturier out. He's not there right now. Cam Atkinson, he's out of their lineup as well. Rasmus Ristolainen didn't play the other night, was a scratch. And so, there's three regulars that are out of their lineup right off the bat for the Philadelphia Flyers. Noah Tippett, who they got from Florida in that Claude Giroux deal last year at the deadline. He started the game, but he left. So injuries becoming a factor early on in Philadelphia. Perhaps they're going to be a little bit short in terms of manpower. They weren't the other night against the Devils, and we'll see what they look like this afternoon when the puck drops against the Canucks.
Canucks came up short on the power play against Edmonton, going 1 for 8. They worked on it at practice yesterday. What do you expect from the PP tonight against a penalty kill last year that was bottom 5 in the league in the Flyers?
Yeah, it's an early start, but the power play can't show up late to this one. It's got to be ready the first opportunity they get in the hockey game, and I do think it'll be better. I think the other night in Edmonton, who knows why? I mean, some of it was Quinn Hughes leaving in the second period there for a little bit, but there's still enough talent. I want to see them move it to the inside to Bo Horvat. He was the trigger man. He was their ace in that bumper spot. I didn't think they used enough of that, and I want to see some movement, and I'd like to see some variation. I know that Elias Pettersson is the one-time option that they ultimately want, but I think other teams know that as well. So I want to see a little bit of creativity, work it down low. I think Andrei Kuzmenko can be a playmaker as much as a goal scorer. He scored the one power play goal the other night, going to the net. Nice feed from JT Miller. But I want to see them work the puck in different ways, get the defense moving, keep the defense guessing. And ultimately, they have to be careful of Ivan Provorov getting in the way of shots. He blocked 10 shots himself the other night against the New Jersey Devils. So putting himself in harm's way. We'll see if he wants to step in front of an Elias Pettersson one-timer, but that's the price you have to pay at the National Hockey League level. But Provorov, the early season shot block leader in the National Hockey League with 10 into double digits on opening night.
Speaking of Ivan Provorov, a Russian himself, Ilya Mikheyev skated with the Canucks yesterday, but not going to get back into the lineup just yet to make his debut as a Canuck. However, Nils Höglander is still skating on a line with Elias Pettersson. He's going to have to take advantage of this opportunity while he's got it.
Yeah, Mikheyev, he's out of his non-contact jersey. It sounds like he's close. I know Bruce Boudreau said, hey, the minute I get the word from the doctor that he's good to go, he's in the lineup. So it sounds like his season and his Canuck debut is going to come on this road trip at some point. But this is another opportunity for Nils Höglander to play on that line with Elias Pettersson and Andrei Kuzmenko. As a line, they were dominant in terms of puck possession and shot share and all those types of things that you want to see. Spent most of their night in the offensive zone 5-on-5. And again, without Sean Couturier, we're talking about one of the best defensive forwards in the National Hockey League. This is a real opportunity for the Canucks. Whatever Torts wants to do in terms of the matchup game, he doesn't have his matchup ace at his disposal right now. So you wonder if that's an area that the Vancouver Canucks can exploit. And Elias Pettersson got off to the nice start. It is a 60-minute game, though, and as the night went on, and I'm not casting aspersions on Elias Pettersson because I love what I've seen from him to this point, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough from any of their top end guys the other night. Connor McDavid took over for the Oilers, so I'm looking for Elias Pettersson to have one of those nights. There are going to be nights throughout the season. I keep saying nights, but it's an afternoon game. Whatever the case, it's a 4:00 start in Philly. That's early, early evening, late afternoon. By the time it's over, it's going to be night, and I want to see Elias Pettersson have a big night. And for Nils Höglander, there were moments the other night, but if he gets a puck in his wheelhouse, he's going to have to make the most of it, because I do think that Mikheyev is just waiting, chomping at the bit to get in, and he'll be plugged into that spot. Where it goes from there for Höglander, that's up to the coaching staff, obviously, but does he drop lower in the lineup? Does he come right out of the lineup and have to sit out early on? That's pretty tough love for a guy who had a nice training camp, seemed to get back in the good graces with the head coach, but it looks like he is going to skate this afternoon on that line with Pettersson and Kuzmenko. That's an opportunity at this level. Let's see if Nils Höglander can make the most of it.
Talk about Elias Pettersson having to be a difference maker. Thatcher Demko has to be a difference maker for the Canucks as well. Obviously, that loss was not on his shoulders. 20 of 24 shots that he faced, he saved, but ultimately did not get the win. Going to need Thatcher Demko to be that guy for the Canucks. Maybe steal a victory, perhaps in Philadelphia, as they, the second game of this road trip.
Yeah, and he's certainly capable of it. We've seen that, saw it an awful lot last year. It's not a card that you want to play. Hey, get out there and steal us a victory, but he is capable of it. And, it's funny, as I look back at the game the other day in Edmonton, and we know that, look, there's the empty net goal at the end. That one's not on Demko, but the 4 that were scored, 2 of them on the power play, one of them the tic-tac-toe goal that he had no chance on whatsoever. I didn't think any of the goals were ones that you want to beat the netminder up over, but if you ask Thatcher Demko, what did you think of giving up 4 goals? I'm sure he was downright upset that he wants to be better than that, and he knows that he has to be better than that for the Vancouver Canucks. And if it's going to take them a few games to, find their overall team game, then they need that guy. He was their team MVP last year. He's capable of doing it. And going up against Carter Hart, who didn't play in the preseason, but did play on opening night, and by all accounts was very good, made 35 saves on 37 New Jersey shots. Devils on the road in Philly outshot the Flyers 37-25, but Carter Hart up to the challenge there. He produces a victory for his team. Now we'll see if Thatcher Demko can do the same, but hopefully the Canucks won't hang him out to dry and lean on him. You want to think that they're going to give him the support that he needs, but 3 goals on the road, a 3-0 lead. It was all there for the Vancouver Canucks and Thatcher Demko the other night. Unfortunately, didn't happen for them, so let's see what happens here this afternoon in Philly.
Mike Yeo, of course, spent the last 3 years on the bench in Philadelphia as an assistant coach, making his return to the city of brotherly love.
It's kind of funny how this works. Really, over the course of history, the Vancouver Canucks and Philadelphia Flyers really haven't had a lot of common bonds. I mean, there have been some trades and guys have come and gone. But here recently, Alain Vigneault is the head coach of the Flyers. John Tortorella is now the head coach of the Flyers. And Mike Yeo is an assistant to Bruce Boudreau on the Vancouver Canuck bench. And of course, he stepped in and was an assistant under Alain Vigneault and then became the interim head coach once they punted AV last season, but didn't do enough to keep the big job. And they brought Torts in. They wanted to, fire and brimstone and all that kind of stuff. But for Mike Yeo, he goes back to the place that he coached and was familiar with. But ultimately, and I read Patrick Johnson had a story in the Province that he spoke to Mike Yeo after Friday's practice. And Yeo had a lot of good things to say about his time there and the people in the organization. But he's on the other side now. And that he'll want to do whatever he can to contribute to the first Canuck victory. And we should point out, because we did on the postgame pod the other night as well, that next Canuck victory, whenever it comes, win number 1 this season, will be number 600 in the coaching career of Bruce Boudreau. That he doesn't want to have to wait a whole lot longer to scratch that one off the list.
All right, let's get to my Bodog best bet here. And of course, if you followed my first best bet of the season, you won yourself some money. So maybe you want to get in on this one. I'm going to take the under in this game, JPat, at 6.5 goals at -120. Now, I know we saw 7 goals in the Flyers' first game of the season. We saw 8 goals in the Canucks' first game of the season. I feel like these matinee affairs might be a little bit sleepy getting going. I like the under at 6.5 goals. Take that -120. Head over to Bodog and place your bet. All right. Everybody loves this point of the pregame. Who today, this afternoon, needs to do something from the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah, for a variety of reasons, this one just feels like it has to be the captain. There is, in my opinion, a little bit of unfair heat on him after one game. And yet, Bo Horvat seemed to be in the sights of a lot of people. I know that there were people that were pointing to that back check on the shorthanded goal, the fact that he had some opportunities and wasn't able to convert. And it just feels like if this is going to be a team win, he is the captain. He wears the C. He is the leader for that reason. His cousin, Travis Konechny, plays on the other side. So I don't know if, family bragging rights, I guess family bragging rights would be on the line. Whatever the case, I just kind of feel like this has to be a Bo Horvat game. And I liked a lot of what I saw from Horvat with Podkolzin and Connor Garland at even strength the other night in Edmonton. I actually thought that they generated and created. And as we said, no Sean Couturier on the other side. So, I'm curious to see what the matchup game looks like in this because perhaps that is a line that can benefit. If it's the third line for the Canucks and the Flyers try to match up against either Miller or Pettersson, maybe that opens the door for Bo Horvat to see third and fourth line competition on the other side. And if that's the case, would love to see the captain step up and just lower the volume in this market. I know that with the contract, he's going to be a hot topic all season long. It's just the way it works in a market like this one. But it kind of felt like there was some unfair criticism after one night. It's a team game. He wasn't good enough, but the team itself, all those guys in the top unit power play. So whether it's an even strength, whether it comes with a man advantage, I just feel like this afternoon's an opportunity for Bo Horvat to rise up, make a statement, and help the Vancouver Canucks grab their first victory of the season. So Bo Horvat got to do something in this one against the Flyers.
We don't overreact here in Canadian markets at all after one game, do we? I like the pick, though, and you're absolutely right. The captain probably feels himself that he wants to do something to see if he can do it this afternoon for the Canucks against the Flyers. Be sure to join us for our post-game podcast. We'll have that available for you as quick as we can after the final whistle, so you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube page, please do so now. And we'd love to hear in the comments, who do you think should do something this afternoon for the Canucks? Leave that below. All right, JPat, looking forward to it. Game 2 of this 5-game road trip for the Canucks as they look for their first W in Philadelphia. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver podcast. And remember, for Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Rink Wide is the show that always scores.